So the other day, I was quite naive. I posted a little Facebook thing. Like it wasn't much. It was just about like I said like car chasing is not predatory behavior. And the point of this post that I created was simply to tell people not all chasing is the same, and we need to have a look at the type of chasing that we're dealing with in order to adjust our training. This created a big stir on the internet. Woo! So yeah, there were a lot of people commenting, even very rude comments that I deleted and blocked straight away because I cannot deal with that. But there was a lot of things going on, and I think we need to deep dive a little bit more into that because my explanation was not very in depth, and I think this also contributes to the confusion about it. And this is why I have just sat down and brought my thoughts into order about the components of that are behind car chasing. And the point is, car chasing is never, never, ever predatory behavior. And you will see in the course of what I'm going to say why it's not real predatory behavior. I would suggest that, most of the times when I see dogs chasing cars, we have a fear-related behavior, even if it does not look like that at the first glance. And the reason is that we often have young dogs, inexperienced dogs that are led on on a sidewalk of a narrow street on a leash. And then at some point, a car comes from behind. Maybe there is a startle in the dog, and yeah, they experience cars as something spooky. And then I have a lot of people commenting below that, yeah, but if they are afraid, why would they run after the car? That makes no sense. But if you think about it, it makes sense because we have 4 different responses to fear. The primary response often is to run away, the flight response. But if running away is not possible because there is a leash on the dog and the dog is held back by a tight leash, then the dog needs to go into something different in order to cope with the situation. And besides the flight response, we have the freeze, which is that the dogs do not move anymore. We have fiddle or fawn, which means they behave like they are being, playful, but in the end, it's not playful. And this does both like the fawn and the freeze response do not really often happen when we're dealing with cars or moving objects. But we often see is a fight response. This is also a response to fear. If you cannot get away, then fight it, make it go away, right? So we have a distance increasing situation here. The dog wants to fight the car off. It wants to go away. And when we think about it, the dog is always successful with it because the car drives on. But nobody tells the dog that the car would have driven on anyway. The dog in this moment really thinks, oh, this is what I did. I was successful. The car went away. I am relieved now. I will do that again. And when something works in behavior, then the dog will repeat it, of course. He was successful. It felt good. He felt the relief. Okay. So we often see this fight response in impulsive dogs, like, for example, terriers or border collies a lot. Border collies also have a different component, but it's in general more the impulsive dogs that go into the fight response quite often, and they are, of course, successful. And then we have something else. We have something which is called pseudo-predation. Predatory behavior that is not really predatory behavior. It's called pseudo-predatory behavior, pseudo-predation. And here, for those dogs, there is this dopamine triggered. It's triggered by the movement of the car or the bike or the jogger. Predatory behavior or predatory responses are triggered by swift and fast movements that appear suddenly. And this applies often for joggers, for bikes, for cars, for scooters that come out of the blue and then suddenly, move in front of you. Yeah, so it's also often triggered by high-pitched squeaky noises. We sometimes have this with bicycles, for example, when they hit the brakes, that they make these sounds, and maybe this also contributes to the predatory response. Um, but what the dog does with this when the predatory response is triggered is often genetically anchored according to their motor pattern, or it is a learned behavior. So for example, most dogs, what they do when they go into this predatory response because of the movement and the sounds, is that they chase it or they chase and grab it, which of course is not very good when they try to do this with the tires of a car. Um, Border collies often get triggered by the movement and then they want to chase and stop it. So like standing in front of the car and stopping the car to control the movement, trying to get ahead of it, which is also not very healthy. But even border collies sometimes have this response where they try to grab the tires and make them stop. But still, this, even though it's a predatory response, it's not predation. It's not real predatory behavior because cars are not in the preying scheme of a canine. So every dog that sees a car knows that this is not something they can eat. It's not a real predatory behavior. It's not a real predatory response. We call this pseudo-predation. There is only one occasion, and this does not happen very often, where we have real predatory behavior in play here when it's about car chasing, bike chasing, joggers chasing. And this is when the dog starts to chase, but then suddenly stops and realizes, oh, this is not a wild animal. This is something else. And I've seen that in my own dog a couple of times when her eyesight got worse, that she started to chase, and then at some point she stopped, and she was like, "No, no, this actually is nothing that I want to get closer to," because predatory behavior is a distance decreasing behavior. The dog wants to come close as possible, wants to grab it, wants to stop it, but then the dogs realize, oh no, in fact, I'm just mistaken here. This is not something that I want. And these are the only cases in car chasing when it's real predatory behavior. So when the dog suddenly realizes, no, not, not what I want. Um, yeah, so most cases that I see when I have clients that come for car chasing, bike chasing, joggers, is that we have mixed emotions in the dog. And we see that a lot in the dog's body language. We often have fear plus frustration. Because there is often barrier frustration, like the dog is on leash, the dog is held back by a leash, or the dog is behind a fence or behind a window, and this triggers this fight response where the dog has this frustrating emotions. Yeah, and yeah, often it's mixed emotions. And even when we deal with wildlife chasing, predation is not purely positive often for a lot of dogs, especially when we have dogs that chase defensive wild animals that fight back and do not just give in and die. Um, we also see these mixed emotions. It's not like predation uh, is always this positive thing that the dog makes the dog just happy and nothing else. Um, for example, we often have a fear component, an inner conflict in predatory behavior, and we see that especially in pointing dogs. In pointers, when they lift their paw and they freeze, this is an inner conflict that we have enhanced through artificial breeding. We have dogs that feel at the one hand excited and want to get closer and want to hunt, but on the other hand, they are inhibited and yeah, like no, I don't want to get any closer. I will point at it, but I don't want to really get close. This is what makes them ideal pointing dogs. They have an inner conflict of excitement, but on the other hand, also fear. So fear is so often woven, is it the right word? To weave to into predatory behavior. And we see that so often, even when it comes to real predatory behavior. And terriers, for example, they have this rage component in there when they are in hunting mode. It makes it possible for them to go underground into the dens of really defensive animals like badgers or foxes, and to be so brave. Um, and this component of rage combined with hunting behavior is what it makes it not a very good idea to grab your terrier from underneath the couch, because they might go really ballistic about this. Yeah, so what I often hear is, yeah, my dog is such a bully, he's so dominant, he wants to chase the car away, he wants to flatten the car. But I'm not so sure about this, because most dogs that I see when they go after bikes, joggers, cars, is that they are not the self-confident dogs. They are the ones that are really conflicted and do not know what to do with their big emotions. So I find it really important to know what is the emotion is going on inside the dog, because then I can find ways to reward them appropriately. If I do not just want to stop them by shocking them and say, okay, let's leave that be. For me, I think that's a little bit clumsy and uninspired. Um, so when I have a dog with a fear response, I reward them by leading them out of the situation. So I leave the situation for being good and for cooperating with me. Okay, we can now create that distance, and the dog feels the relief. When I have a dog that has more pseudo-predation, he wants to go for it, or he feels frustrated about this, then I have a dog who wants to reduce distance to the object. So I give him a substitution hunt. But this is the complete opposite. Or maybe if it's safe to do, I can lead the dog into the situation and have him get closer to what he wants to check out, but in a controlled way. But if I have a dog with a fear issue and I do that and leave and put them into the situation and lead them even closer, it's just the opposite of what I want to do, because then it's not a reward for the dog. So in all of these cases, I do not use PST methods, or only to a certain degree. I use the games to give the dog an outlet. I teach them about cooperation, but I need to know what to do when I face the situation, when I face the dog with a jogger or with a bike or with a car, how to react afterwards. What is the consequence that results from the encounter? So in all of these, occasions that have to do with not wild animals, but cars and bikes and stuff like that, my go-to method is changing the association. So instead of using like a PST method, like letting them watch, I rather want them to disengage, and I want them to change the association. Like, from this is a car, I'm going to freak out now. I want them to go to a association where they see a car and they think, oh, nice things are going to happen now. So they turn to me instead of the car. And from my perspective, none of these motivations that I've just mentioned require heavy punishment or aversive tools. So it's all about knowing what is going on in your dog and then working with the motivation.